Okay. Good morning, brothers and sisters. I know I said in the last video that we'd go over the information that is weaved in the scriptures that shows us a great battle in the heavens. I have compiled that information, but before I do a video on that, I thought I had some more information that I'd share. I thought it was important enough to share for anybody who's trying to follow this theology and round it out. I'm just going to share with you what I've been finding in the scriptures and how it leads us back to where the beginnings of Baal, alright, actually began to take form in the earth under a government and a wicked ruler, and it's all there. It's actually recorded once you know what you're looking at. And also where the 10 tribes of Israel, at least I found 4 of them in the scriptures. Once you understand who the remnant is actually specifying, and once you understand its daughters, known as branches in the scriptures, and you begin to look for that and correlate the information, then you begin to understand at least where some of these daughters are actually told are going to come from. So we're going to discuss that. Now I'm going to minimize this so I can hopefully operate in a better manner. So I'm hoping I can minimize. Maybe I won't be able to. Okay. So we did that. Now let's see if I can open that over the top of it. Oh, I can. Okay, so hopefully we're still recording. Okay. So where are we going to find, let's first of all find where we find 4 of the tribes. Alright? Maybe not 4 tribes, but at least where these daughters are going to come from. Who knows what tribes are from? It doesn't specify. They're just told, we're just told that they are the remnant of Israel. Once you understand the term the branch, and that the remnant is referring to the daughters that were cut off, okay? Now we're going to reference one verse first before we do anything else here. And it's found in Ezekiel 19. Verse 10, and it says this, alright? Now understand how once they took control of the law, and we're talking about Baal, these false godly image Baals, your Mardons, your Nebus, all of those, Milcom, Moloch, when they took control of the law, and they're all Baal, men of Baal, they all derive from your husband, a wicked man, not a righteous husband, a wicked husband who wanted to rule over women. And so there was many of these wicked men, and so but once they got control of the law, they just simply removed our place out of the context. Oh yeah, there's mention of the feminine, but it's mentioned in such a negative light that it really keeps us under their thumb, under the law. And we're told that God wouldn't lie to us. God tells us the truth. It's not our fault if we don't understand it. But in basic, they tell us a theology that is shaped by their hand, okay? And God says, no, no, no. You don't listen to man, you listen to the Spirit, all right? And we're told that repeatedly. You don't let anybody shape the theology for you. You let me teach you, the Spirit says. And she says, not by might. And God is she. And before I reference this verse, before we get to it, what I was driving at is they removed the feminine and put male everywhere. Alright? So we need to bear that in mind once we understand the key of David, once we understand the daughter of Zion is a key of David, denied a rightful place, and that they put a harlot in known as daughter Babylon, which is actually themselves, ruling over themselves. Alright? And we've discussed this in many different aspects, okay? On many of my videos already. So just bear that in mind. But what was I getting at? See, I talk so long I forget my own thoughts. But the fact is that under those man-made laws, they put you under their thumb. Now I wish I could remember what it was. I did it again. Sorry. Let's read the verse then. If I can't remember, maybe it'll come back to me. Okay. So it says, your mother was like a vine in your vineyard. I don't think it's in your vineyard. I think she is the vineyard. Your mother was like a vine in the vineyard planted by the water. It was fruitful and full of branches because of abundant water. Now, we realized where our water is found, and it's with the righteous spirit known as your wife. All right? Your righteous wife. And you get that in Proverbs 5. It also states in Song of Songs 4, verse 12, that my bride is a garden, is a fountain sealed. Well, it's telling you where the Spirit dwells, who it is. It's the woman. And what you need to understand is men took possession as being the creator under that law. And that's why he gets mocked in passages. The male gets mocked, your Baal, your Lord, your God, as being your God that's going to deliver you. And Mother God states, she says in Jeremiah 30, verse 6, she says, why now do we see every man standing around with his hands on his hips as a woman in travail? Because she's saying, okay, let's give them the conditions to deliver children. We'll put them in pain. We'll put them in travail. All right? They've denied her travail and said, that don't mean nothing. She's in pain because of all of her sin. So she says, okay, let's give them the conditions, set the conditions on them so that they can deliver children if they're the creator, if they're the potter. All right, we're going to look at that word in a minute. And so she says, we'll put them in travail, we'll put them in pain, just like she is, because they want it to be the God that delivers children and is the creator of it. And she says, we'll even expose their foreskin, their wicked covenant, wherein they state they're the gods of this earth that deliver children. Because she says they have to restore back what was taken. And they claim that they can do that because they're the God, the creator, the potter of this world. That's what they claim. And so she says, hey, they're the God, they're the creator, we'll expose your foreskin, and we'll put you in travail, and we'll bear witness to you delivering the children, since you're the creator of all things. That's the mock, once you get the understanding. The thing is that they don't want you to understand it. Oftentimes they will leave this word, well, I believe it's only used one time. Let's go to, and this is the word. Let me see here. We'll pull it up. Let's see if I can find my numbers here. It is Strong's Hebrew, number 70. And this is what it means. It means a wheel, a disc. Go down. Of course it won't go down to let me scroll down. Let me see if I can page down here. Okay. So it means from the same as event, a wheel, a stool, a pair of stones, only dual, a potter's wheel, or a midwife's stool, consisting alike of two horizontal discs with a support between, a wheel, a stool. So here we have actually what they're calling the potter's wheel. And they're referring to it as a midwife's stool, which doesn't quite jive with what's in the notes, because it says a bearing stool. It's a bearing stool, a midwife's stool, from likeness to a potter's wheel, on custom of labor upon the stool. So if we understand the clay and who actually shapes the clay, what body on this earth forms clay in their womb? Well, it's not man. Who travails to bring forth that life once that form is shaped in their womb? And it is their bodies that shapes the clay in their womb. And then they push it out through great travail. And that's why it shows you the virgin in Revelations 12, birthing children. She's the spirit that does that. She's the water that births the children out through the gate, and only she can do it. But God mocks them in and says, hey, you took away my daughter's rightful place as the creator, as the one that shapes the body and births it out into life. You took that role away from them, and you said you could do it. And so she says, based on your teachings, after you put your lying theology to my daughters' lips and made them your harlot, so that they would teach your lying theology under your law, taking their rights away from them. She says, let's see you do it. She says, I'll give you the conditions to meet. I'll put you in travail and we'll expose your foreskin. Let's see you do it. This is your covenant that you're saying you're God under it, and that you're going to restore back to me what you took away from me, my children, through your lies, through your man-made theology. So she says, go ahead, do it. Let's watch you do it. Now, this takes us right back, really, to the branch that's spoken of here in Ezekiel 19, or the vine. All right? So it says, your mother was like a vine in your vineyard. I don't agree with that. It says your mother, I believe it was your mother is your vineyard. It was fruitful and full of branches because of abundant waters, full of daughters. That's your understanding. Full of daughters who were your spirit rulers upon this earth because of the abundant water, because of the abundant word that she was gave by the mother spirit from above. But man denied her rightful place, and they said, no, she's not. We're the creator. We're the God of this earth. And she's going to teach it, so she bows down to our feet. And it says in Isaiah 59, the last verse, it says, she has laid her back flat so that they could walk upon her. That's what it says. So where were these tribes driven to that's actually gave to us in the scriptures? We'll begin in Isaiah 15. And it's called, and I'll list the tribes for you. Now, it ain't going to let me scroll down. Why? What did I do wrong? See how inept I am at this? I'm pathetic. There's no two ways about this. Okay, just give me a second here. See if I can't get something going. Right. It ain't going to let me. Amazing. Over. Sorry. Okay, so I'll just go to my Bible. It just ain't going to let me scroll. Once this is up, it will not let me scroll. I can't minimize it. It won't let me minimize. See, I don't know what I'm doing wrong. So, I'll figure it out maybe someday. But we're told actually where 4 of these tribes is. We're told that portions of these tribes, whether it's just 2 tribes that's been strewn in these 4 countries, I don't know, but it's distinctly told us in Isaiah 15, Isaiah 16, and 17, I believe, and maybe 18. And the 4 countries is Moab, which is your modern-day Jordan, Ethiopia, which God has some specific words there, and Egypt is another one that she has specific words with, and Syria. So these are 4 countries of the world where we know the remnant daughters, known as the branches, the scion, were driven to, because it specifically tells us this. And we know she's looking for her daughters because of passages such as, and we'll give you one in Isaiah, you see here, 27:12 says this. It says, in that day the Lord will thresh from the flowing Euphrates to the wadi of Egypt, and you, Israel, will be gathered up one by one. All right. So she's saying to her daughters here, who are the branches in that verse in Ezekiel 19, verse 10. It is a feminine. They're trying to deny that that's a feminine, but if you scroll down, you notice it says feminine for 1910. Based on the adjective, it says if you go to the noun, it would be a feminine. So, if I'm understanding that properly. So we know that the branches there are female. Your rulers are your branches, your rightful rulers, known as the daughters of Zion, who were denied their rightful place, known as the key of David, who is your government of God upon this earth, that mother works through to give her word, her water. And we're told that. Proverbs 5. All right, Song of Songs 4:12. So, all right. Let's read Isaiah 14. And it's called, Isaiah 15. Sorry about that. I have a lot of information I wanted to get through. I'm not going to do it. But Moab, we know, is modern-day Jordan. Where do we want to go here? let's go find the exact, it's not a long chapter. Okay, the burden of Moab, we'll start at verse 1, I guess. Because in the night Ar of Moab is laid waste and brought to silence. Because in the night Ker of Moab is laid waste and brought to silence. He is gone up to Bajith and to Dibon, the high places, to weep. Moab shall howl over Nebu. What's Nebu? Well, we can link Nebu back to Nimrod. That's going to take us back to those men of Baal who began to write laws in the land to subjugate the daughters of Zion. All right. And it says, in their street they shall gird themselves. Okay, they will weep over and howl over Nebu and over Medeba. On all their heads shall be baldness and every beard cut off. In their streets they shall gird themselves with sackcloth on the tops of their houses, and in their streets everyone shall howl, sweep, and weeping abundantly. And Heshbon shall cry, and Elilah, their voice shall be heard, even unto Jahaz. Therefore the armed soldiers of Moab shall cry out, his life shall be grievous unto him. It says, now do I have the right chapter? My heart shall cry out for Moab. The fugitives shall flee. All right, here we get a representation of the heifer. An heifer of 3 years old. For by the mounting up of Luhith with weeping shall they go it up. For in the way of Horonaim they shall raise up a cry of destruction. These are the daughters in up. See if I could get the passage up here. Let me see. Oh, I did. But I can't scroll down. Let's see. Okay. Let me see. Oh, it's not there. Maybe it was 16. Yeah, it was 16. Yeah, okay, so we'll finish reading that. We'll go into 16. For the waters of Nimrim shall be desolate, for the hay is withered away, the grass faileth, there is no green thing. All right? Therefore the abundance they have gotten, and that which they have laid up, shall they carry away to the brook of the willows. For the cry is gone round about the borders of Moab, the howling thereof unto Igleam, and the howling thereof unto Beer Elim. For the waters of Dibon shall be full of blood, for I will bring more upon Dimon, lions upon him that escapeth of Moab, and upon the remnant of the land. Now that's not talking about these daughters, it's talking about the men, what's left on the land. Verse 16, send ye the lamb to the ruler of the land, from Selah to the wilderness unto the mount of the daughter of Zion. For it shall be that as a wandering bird cast out of the nest, so the daughters of Moab shall be at the fords of Arnon. So it's the daughters here that's wandering, all right? And she's saying, unto the mount of the daughter of Zion. So we're bringing the daughter of Zion. We're bringing the daughters of Jordan into it. Modern-day Jordan would be Moab. And perhaps there may be other little parcels of land. Take counsel, execute judgment. Make thy shadow as the night in the midst of the noonday. Hide the outcast. Well, we were told in another verse, and I didn't locate it, that the daughter Zion became the outcast. She became the one that no man wanted. And that's your righteous spirit that men do not want, because then it means she's the ruler that rules the body with righteous words from heaven, the water, which was her mother, the vine. And these daughters come from her. That's what it's saying. So it says, protect them. Hide the outcast, and bewray not her that wandereth. Let mine outcast dwell with thee. Jordan, be thou a covert to them from the face of the spoiler, for the extortioner is at an end. The spoiler ceases, the oppressors are consumed out of the land. So, I can't go into this because I'm going to get out of time and I know it. But here it's referring to these daughters. And these daughters are called out, they're pulled out of the nations. That's what we read in that verse, Isaiah 27:12. That's who she's gathering. It's as if the casting away of them be the reconciling of the world. What shall the receiving of them be but life from the dead? So if you read 16, you have daughters being gathered back God is specific and says, protect them. And she has much more to say in these chapters. I mean, there's just so much information. Verse 14, but now the Lord hath spoken, saying, within 3 years, as the years of a hireling, and the glory of Moab shall be contemned with all that great multitude, and the remnant shall be very small and feeble. Now Damascus, your prophecy of Damascus in 17, what does it say? We hit the glory in there again too. It says, in that day, and it shall come to pass that the glory of Israel shall be made thin, and the fatness of her flesh shall wax lean. Where is it? I'll hit it. Okay. It says that they're the glory of the Lord. What's left in Syria? All right, it's verse 3. The fortress also shall cease from Ephraim, and the kingdom from Damascus, and the remnant of Syria, they shall be as the glory of the children of Israel, saith the Lord of hosts. Now we know who the glory is referring to. It's referring to the daughters. That's what our study has led us to. So it's saying that they also come out of Syria here. Then in chapter 18 of Isaiah, it brings Ethiopia into it. And so it says, some of these women in Ethiopia are mine, but then she has a very harsh word to say to them. She says, but some of you are not mine. She says, you never were. You're just pretenders. Where does she say it? You read chapter 18, Ethiopia has women in it that are also her daughters of Zion. Egypt also, if you read chapter 19, also has daughters, and we know we're referencing daughters here because of the passages that we find in Zephaniah chapter 3. And let's read it so we get our reference here. Making sure I didn't go by it. Zephaniah chapter 3. What does it say? Verse 18. I will gather them that are sorrowful for the solemn assembly, who are of thee, to whom the reproach of it was a burden. Verse 19, behold, at that time I will undo all that afflict thee, and I will save her that halteth, and gather her that was driven out, and I will get thee praise and fame in every land where they have been put to shame. That's your Baal, your husband, putting women to shame under the law, saying she's to blame for everything. And mother says, I'll gather these back out. And she says, at that time will I bring you again, even in the time that I gather you. That's your gatherer, the spirit, your Asaph. She's also your preacher in Ecclesiastics, the one who puts all prophecies in the right order. She is your spirit. They call it a preacher there, trying to allude that it's a male. You go in and you look the word up for preacher in Ecclesiastics 12, and it clearly states it's a female assembler. It's your gatherer, your spirit. For I will make you a name and a praise among all people of the earth when I turn back your captivity before your eyes, saith the Lord. Now, I was given a strange word. This wasn't the first time. And I had an understanding. And I've been shown it in a dream as well. The dreams are confusing. When you have a dream here, and a year and a half later you have another dream, and you have another dream. Because I don't get a lot of dreams. But it took me a while to put them together and what I was actually being shown in them. And she keeps giving me, what's the word? Rear guard. And so the idea is that she says the glory of the Lord will go in front. And the example she gave me was in the Exodus. The glory of the Lord goes in front, but then it swings behind and comes up behind and says, I will be your rear guard. And so it looks like possibly the rear guard may come out of these nations over here in the west. That's just a supposition of mine that I'm working from right now. So we know the glory's been strewed everywhere, all right, around the globe. We don't know exactly where they're going to come from, but these four indicates that it does come out. These do come out of these four countries. At least some of the tribes do. And then Isaiah 27, she also says, from the flowing Euphrates to the wadi of Egypt, and you, Israel, will be gathered up one by one. Now, I know it seems to set a condition on where they come from. And I'm still trying to understand that. From the flowing Euphrates. Now, we know where the Euphrates is, I know. But we also know that this lying doctrine flowed out to the four corners of the globe, all right? And we know that we descended from these areas over time. These daughters were cast out into the fields of the Gentiles. We see that with Moab, Ethiopia, Egypt. And Syria was always considered, I believe, part of Israel in the beginning. And probably many of these nations were, I don't know. Portions of them were said to be part of Israel's original borders. I know that. Now, beyond that. But, so we know that some of them are cast out there. We see where they're coming from. We know they're the daughters. They're referenced as the branch. And in Ezekiel 19, they try to make it that it's referencing a man, a male ruler. And it is not. It's referencing a female ruler, a daughter. Once you begin to put the pieces together, which few are willing to do. They're just not willing to let go of the lies that Baal taught them. They're just not willing to let it go. But what does it say? And they say, then the nation said against not him. Israel's the woman's seed. It's a feminine. Against her, it was the only nation set apart to represent her. All right? All the other nations of the world that surrounded her were considered male, Adamic. And the seed was considered his because they were teaching his lies to it. But this one, Israel, was set apart to represent her seed because they possessed the branch, the rod, the rulers, which were daughters. All right? And it says, she's like a vine in their blood. Your mother was like a vine in your vineyard, in your blood. It also says, fruitful and full of branches by reason of many waters. So the Spirit was with the woman's seed, Israel. That means these daughter rulers. And they flourished under their rulership. That's indicated in the scriptures. I did a study on this quite a while ago. And I'll pin it underneath this video. But it says, in Ezekiel 19, verse 8, it says, then the nation set against her, not him, on every side from the provinces and spread their net over her. So Edom was trying to confine her word, remove it from her, and he did so over time under the law, by creating law. I mean, the thoughts that man has a right to take away woman's rights under a law is absolutely preposterous when you get thinking about it. He has no right to tell you that you can't do this or you can't do that. He really has no right to do that. None. And yet we gave him that right. And yes, he perpetuated violence against us, and what most of these daughters of the land were told that. And yes, it was by design. But to think that we're under conditions where there's women who actually believe that they don't have rights under the law, and that it came from God in the beginning. It did not come from God. It came from your husband Baal. And right here, it says right here how he managed to take these daughters into captivity. It says, then the nation set against her on every side from the provinces. Once you get the right perspective, which is feminine, spread their net over her, and she was taken in their pit, in their snare, in their traps. And they put her in a ward, in chains. That means they yoked us under the law and brought her to the king of Babylon. Who was the king of Babylon in the beginning? Nimrod. Goes right back to Nimrod. The mighty hunter before the Lord on the land. Well, when you get looking up the hunter here, it actually takes you back to the understanding that he laid in wait. And he hunted righteous sons and daughters off of the land, right? And it says he became a mighty hunter before the Lord. Not in the way that you think. He was actually stealing the riches from the righteous kingdom. He was actually taking and stealing That's the building up of himself under the law, making himself rich and a glorious king under the law. That began with Nimrod. And the beginning of his kingdom was Babylon, right? So it's telling you who worked to create this image of a harlot under a man, under a male, under his rulership. And it comes from Nimrod. Once you go in and you begin to understand all of these gods, supposed gods' name. If you look up Nimrod, a son of Cush and a founder of the Babylonian kingdom. Alright? Etymology in the meaning is wholly unknown. In fact, probably Babylonian name, a god. E.g., we get to Marduk, another god here, which they think may have been him. Marduk. It is proposed Narudu equals Namra-Udu, a star god. A star god, really. And this is what it states. I wrote it all down. So it means, it also meant that his name, a Babylonian king or prince, Nimrod, a man of Marad or Marade. So if we look up the definition, this is what I went on to suppose. Definition of a marauder, because that's what it gives you in the name Nimrod, which is 5248 in Hebrew, if you want to look it up, 5248. And it's a marauder is a person who marauds, a raider, similar, raider, plunderer, pillager, looter, robber, pirates, freebooter, highwaymen. And it states in many of the passages in the book of Psalms, they lie in wait for me. They laid in wait. And it takes you back to what Nimrod was really doing in the beginning. And he appears in chapter 10 of the Bible, is where he begins to appear. Chapter 10? Yeah, it's back on the first page. Chapter 10, I believe, or 11. Chapter 10, Nimrod, right? So, but it takes us back to him lying in wait, and he began to build up the kingdom of Babylon by being a great hunter in the land, which then takes you to the fact that he was not hunting animals, though he may have been hunting those to some degree. He was hunting men. He was hunting men and women off of the land, righteous sons and daughters. He was taking them out of the land, and he was stealing their possessions from them. He was ripping the kingdom, the righteous kingdom, away slowly over time. So that's why it gives that his name possibly means what I stated it means, man of Marad, and a marauder, which takes you to Job 30. And they shot at the daughters in Genesis 49:22-24. So these archers, your husbands, right, was Baal. That's your husband, Baal, remember, the men of Baal who came against the daughter Zion. And it began with Nimrod. As far back as I can trace it, right? Because he was the first king of Babylon. Babylon was the beginning of his empire, it states. It states that right here. We'll read it. Let's read it instead of going there. So this is taking us back to this here in Ezekiel 19. And Cush. Genesis 10 verse 8. And Cush was the father of Nimrod, who began to be a mighty one on earth. He was a mighty hunter. Well, if you take the derivatives from hunter, it means he was actually hunting men off the land. Righteous sons and daughters out of the land and stealing their goods. So it looks like he became a hunter against the daughter of Zion. He was a mighty hunter before the Lord, so it is said, like Nimrod, a mighty hunter before the Lord. His kingdom began in Babylon, Erech, Akkad, Akkadian. They worship that one a lot in movies. And Calneh in the land of Shinar. From that land he went forth into Assyria, where he built Nineveh, Rehoboth. I can't talk. I can't read my own writing either. Rehoboth, and Calah. Okay. So there we have it. If you want to go in and look Nimrod up. All right. So he became a mighty hunter. Really, he became, what it's saying, he began to perpetuate violence against God's government on this earth, which was the daughters of Zion. And that meant taking the righteous sons and the righteous daughters and stealing their goods from them. That was used to build up the daughter of Zion. Nimrod was in fact against them. And Babylon states that it was the daughter Babylon that got built up, right? Got exalted. We're told that in Jeremiah 50, 51, those passages, and many other passages, what got exalted in the earth. And because he perpetuated violence against these daughters. And it stated over and over again what they did. So all of Job 30 tells of the wicked sons who attacked and razed daughter Zion to the ground. So I did write some of the passages out. So let's go here. Sorry for this. Alright, there was many things I wanted to add in here. I'm just not going to get to it. Job 30, and they raised up against me. Job 30 verse 12. And they raised up against me the ways of their destruction. Verse 13. They mar my path. They set forward my calamity. They have no helper. Your helper in the beginning, and this word is only applied to the woman in her creation account and to God as your helper. And so she says, these men who mar my path, they set forward my calamity, they raise up against me the ways of their destruction, their own destruction, they don't care, and they have no helper. That means they cast off the righteous spirit daughter Zion for the harlot, wherein they rule themselves. So they have no helper, you see? They are without the great help of the daughter of Zion. They cast her off, they didn't want her. They cast her down, they said, razed it to the ground. That's what it says in, or is it Psalm 137, 130, one of those chapters. Job 30 verse 14, they came upon me, daughter Zion, possibly in Isaiah 22, in the valley of vision as well. When she states this verse, you can maybe link it back to Isaiah 22. In Job 30 verse 14, they came upon me. But the same condition seems to repeat over and over again. Yeah. So I ain't got Job pulled up. I'll go to Job. I hope you can follow what I'm saying and put it together for yourself. Take out some of what I'm saying and reason it for yourself. I don't know how far along I am on my video here. So what was the passage I was looking at? 14. Watch. This all links you back to Nimrod, or at least the beginnings of what this kingdom began to do to the righteous daughters. They came upon me as a wide breaking in of waters. That's your lying waters. Waters represent people as well. Trees do. We know all these allegories. In the desolation they rolled themselves upon me. Terror are turned upon me. They pursue my soul as the wind, and my welfare passes away as a cloud. This is the righteous spirit overlaid here speaking in the book of Job. And she's telling you what they did to her. What they did to her righteous daughters. They hunted them right out of the land. And they poured upon them. And it began with Nimrod, is what it looks like. And now my soul is poured out upon me. The days of affliction have taken a hold upon me. And they did. They began to take a hold upon these daughters. Righteous or not. They hunted us out of the land. They did not want a covenant with the righteous daughter, known as the daughter Zion, who became known as the outcast, which is those daughters that are gathered in Isaiah 15, 16, 17, 18. At least a portion of them comes out of these nations. The Bible indicates that. And now my soul is poured out upon me. The days of affliction have taken hold upon me. My bones are pierced in me. The night season and my sinews take no rest. By the great force of my disease, of the fall into the first heaven. So, when the righteous spirit was forced out of this body, right? Because Adam no longer wanted a covenant with the righteous spirit, when they began to cast off these righteous daughters and said, we don't want them, we want the harlots that we're going to teach our doctrine to. Those are the ones we're going to be in covenant with, and she'll teach what I tell her to teach. This is the violence that took these righteous daughters out of the land, and it was perpetuated against them intentionally, and so that all might be reconciled. We're told that in Romans 11. But we know it's the Spirit that does all of this, accomplishes all things, and your spirit is represented by the daughters. But she says, they came against me. By the great force of my disease is my garment changed. So her garment changed. Our bodies changed when Adam determined to use violence against these righteous daughters, showing that he indeed did not want a covenant with the righteous spirit, wherein she is forced to be removed from this body, wherein we get took over by the harlot spirit, and we become under him and his law to do his bidding, because she's forced to be removed. And we're shown that she does that in Zechariah chapter 11. Mother says to her daughter, go sell your mantle to them, because they are casting you off. They no longer want you as their rulers. They do not want you in covenant. And these daughters become known as the outcast out into the lands, where they are constantly put to shame and blamed for the downfall of everything. And she says, I'll gather them out of all the nations where I have driven these great mighty branches from, to these rulers who descended from mother. She's like a vine in our blood. She just perpetuates. She kept perpetuating through our blood. That's your blood of Christ, bled out onto this world. She was always here, though, according to passages like in Daniel chapter 2. It says a rock that is, no hands cut this rock out, that smashes those 10 toes. Why? Because the Spirit was always here. She was cast out of the body, but she worked outside of the body. That's your indication, right? She could not indwell them until after Christ come and showed what needed to be done. And so she's your blood, your water, your blood, and they manifest again out of the dust of the earth, according to the scriptures, because they actually come from their mother. She says, you come from, let's go to the passage in Isaiah before we finish this one. See, there's just so much to tell you. It's amazing once you understand it, because it's all there. Awake, awake, put on thy strength. No, it's chapter 51. Isaiah 51, it says, hearken to me, ye that follow after righteousness, ye that seek the Lord. Look unto the rock. That's our mother God. Whence ye are hewn, and to the hole of the pit whence ye are digged from. She's saying, you were always here. You were my foundation. You're my daughters that were my branches, that were full of abundant water because of me. And when the men began to reject her, what did they do in Ezekiel again? Now I've lost Ezekiel 19. They took her in their snares. What does it say? It says, then the nations, these male nations, set against her on every side from the provinces and spread their net over her. She was taken in their pit, and they put her in a wart in chains and brought her into the king of Babylon, the queen, the harlot. They brought her into holds that her voice should no more be heard upon the mountains of Israel. And mother threatened the men of Israel in the Exodus when they were out in the desert. And we did a study on this. Again, I'll post it underneath. And she says, if you no longer want my daughters of Zion as your rulers, as the branch, she says, you'll no longer have them. I can promise you that. I'll cast them out into the fields of the Gentiles. And that was a promise that she made to those sons of Israel when the men of Balaam said to Balak, go get your harlots and send them in, go get your women, and send them into the men, and we'll take out the right hand that way. That was the daughter Zion that they were looking to take out. And mother says, fine, to the men when they began to come against Moses, who supported the daughter of Zion. She says, fine, you don't want them. I'll cast them out in the fields of Gentiles. You won't have my rulers. You won't have them. And so that happens. That comes to pass. And so she says, they silenced her voice on the mountains of Israel. She was the ruler, the queen. Thy mother is like a vine in thy blood. She's saying, I'm still in you. And when the time and the conditions are proper, my daughters will spring up out of the land again. And they will spring up as lionesses, no less. It's told us in Micah. In the book of Micah, I'm sorry if I'm forgetting to hit on other detail that I was moving into. I apologize for that. But in the book of Micah, let's see, I'll find Micah. What are we told of these daughters? She says, you forgot the rock that birthed you, that gave life to you, that writhed in pain to bring you forth. So again, we go back. Fine, we'll set the conditions for your hubby to do that, for the man to do that, because he says he's your creator. Fine, let's watch you birth. Let's expose your foreskin, your covenant, because your covenant states that you're the God that can birth life and create life. You believe in a man that does that. It's going to deliver you. What does it say here? It says, and the remnant of Israel shall be in the midst of many people as a dew. That's the doctrine. That's your waters, your abundant waters from the Lord, as the showers upon the grass that tarrieth not for man, nor waiteth for the sons of men. You're not appointed by man. Man don't give us our rights. God does, not man. And man ain't God. And the remnant of Israel shall be among the Gentiles in the midst of many people, as a lioness, as an Ariel, among the beasts of the forest, as a young lioness among the flocks of sheep, who, if she go through, both treadeth down and teareth in pieces, and none can deliver. So they're out there. We found 4 locations. The Bible indicates that these daughters, these branches, are coming from. They come from their mother. They were cut from her. They are the original foundation. All right? That they razed the stronghold to the ground, known as the daughter of Zion. But the original foundation stayed there. Those daughters are still there. With that word in our blood, like a vine from our mother. That's what it's saying. So, back to 30. So it says, by the great force of my disease is my garment changed. Our bodies changed. They became less because we started playing his harlot. Alright? Because they no longer wanted the righteous spirit. Alright? So this is part and parcel. We're all to blame, in a sense. Right? It bindeth me about as the collar of my coat. He hath cast me into the mire, and I am become like dust and ashes. That's Israel. Israel is your heifer, burnt to ashes. But it tells us why that heifer had to be burnt to ashes. It was to cleanse the temple, which is represented by the body of the man. Alright? Christ is said to be the second Adam. He was cleansed by the ashes of the heifer. Israel, the daughters of Israel, which is your heifer. And she is promised full restoration back. As is the daughter, this one queen, daughter Zion, who comes out of Zion as the rod, as the branch, as the judge, who will strike through kings in the day of her wrath. She is your she-goat in the Abrahamic Sarah covenant. Your heifer's there, your she-goat, your ram, your turtle dove, and your pigeon. So it says, I cry unto thee, and thou dost not hear me. I stand up, and thou regardest me not. These are what our husbands began to do to us, to our word, to our truths. They began to look at us as if we were less because they had took control of the law because of men like Nimrods and their ninnies. Okay, let's keep moving on here. So it says, thou art become cruel to me with thy strong hand. Thou opposest thyself against me. And they did. That's what he did in the beginning. Adam became known as Satan, the accuser, because he accused the righteous spirit. He didn't want her in covenant. We're told that he violated that covenant in Malachi chapter 2, that the priests began to write laws, violence under that law, to perpetuate violence against the righteous daughters. And she says, you took the covenant of the wife of your youth, and you dealt treacherously with her, unfaithfully. You didn't want her in covenant. You cast her out. You didn't want her. So do we understand what it's telling us? I think we have to understand it, don't we? And, okay, so I'm going to be cut off soon. So, what else does it say? We'll go back to this. Howbeit, he will not stretch out his hand to the grave, though they cry in his destruction. Okay, so, if I could think clearer, I'd know what that meant. Did not I weep for him that was in trouble? Was not my soul grieved for the poor? For the daughters, for the widows, she's called the great help. For him that was in trouble, her brother that cast her off didn't want the help. They no longer had the great help anymore. They had cast her off, said we'll be our own rulers. They cut the ties. They cut the laws, is what they're saying, of the righteous spirit. They didn't want her laws. They wrote their own, wherein they got to subjugate her and make her his harlot. We're told that in passages like Habakkuk 2:15 and 16. Howbeit he will stretch out. Okay, did not I weep for him? When I looked for good, then evil came unto me. And when I waited for light, there came darkness. This is the righteous spirit and those daughters that were left. My bowels boiled and rested not. The days of affliction prevented me. I went mourning without the sun. I stood up and I cried in the congregation. So these are your daughters of Zion, known as the congregation of the Lord, that dwelt on the north side of the congregation. We're told that in Isaiah 14 when Satan says, I will. Lucifer says it. I will exalt myself to the congregation of the Lord on the north of the congregation. So we know that these daughters were an assembly, a congregation that dwelt on the north side. They get to be known as the North Country. I wrote a long description of what the Bible tells us about that North Country, which is known as these daughters of Zion, Israel, the remnant of Israel that come out of the nations. I am, it says a brother. No, I'm a sister to dragons and a companion to owls. My skin is black upon me and my bones are burned with heat. Who do we think of when we think of black? Well, it tells us of the song in the Song of Songs, chapter 1, verse 6, verse 8. Who are we talking about here? So we've done this verse many, many times. It's not going to stop us from doing it again. Chapter 1, verse 6, the Song of Solomon. What does it say? It says, look not upon me because I am black, because the sun hath looked upon me. My mother's children, sons, were angry with me. They made me the keeper of the vineyard. But mine own vineyard have I not kept. So she says here, my skin is black upon me and my bones are burned with heat. My harp also is turned to mourning. Your voice, your harp, your music that you make. And my organ into the voice of them that weep. Now that's Job chapter 30. And it's indicated all through the scriptures what Nimrod did. I didn't go into great amount of detail, but I had page after page of detail here that I wanted to share. But you see what happens when you get caught up in so much information that you just really don't have the time to really show it to you. So, I mean, there's many passages that I wrote down. Okay. So, Hosea chapter 13, verse 9, I believe I've got right there. It says, you are destroyed, O Israel, because you are against me, against your helper, against the righteous spirit, which was empowering these daughters of Zion with abundant water, the word. They were cut from her as your original foundation, which she says she's going to restore. It says she began the building of the tabernacle, but it says she will end it too. So men wants to claim that they're the builders. Words like Hebrew number 70 indicates that they were trying to make themselves something they were not, which meant that they had to write laws of violence to subjugate you under them, so that you would teach their lying theology that a man delivers children and he's the creator that forms the clay. No, he doesn't. No, he doesn't. She does it. She always has done it. So she sets those conditions in a mock against him. She says, fine, you say you're the God of this earth. You say you're the creator of life. Then fine, let's put you in travail. We'll expose your foreskin too to help you out there. And we'll see. Let's watch if you can deliver the children. She says, it's my daughters of Zion that I gave in covenant to you to teach the laws of heaven, that's the words, with abundant waters, as my rulers, to have eternal life. And you cast them off. So if the rejecting of them be the reconciling of the world, what shall the receiving of them be but life from the dead? And it says, if the first fruits are holy, that's this 144,000 branches, daughters. If they are holy, the lump is also holy. And you go back one chapter or two chapters, it tells you the lump is the body. So it's telling you these righteous daughters, when they spring up out of the land, is the spirit given in covenant. The new spirit that actually stems from the original foundation that she was cut from. And we know where at least 4 countries is indicated in the scriptures where some of these daughters were cast. So Hosea 13:9, you are destroyed, O Israel, because you are against me, against your helper. Verse 10, where's your king now to save you, and all your cities and rulers who you said, give me a king and princess? In 11, so in my anger I gave you a king, and in my wrath I took him away. So that's coming. That's indicated again in Psalm 110. It says, in her wrath she'll strike through kings in the day of her wrath. That's your branch, that's your rod. That's indicated in Psalm 110. What else do we have? Psalm 59, verse 2. From the men of bloodshed, verse 3. See how they lie in wait for me. Fierce mighty men conspire against me for no transgression or sin of my own. She didn't sin. They simply didn't want her as their ruler. They wanted to cast her off. And that began with Nimrod. For no fault of my own, they move swiftly to attack me. Arise to help me and take notice. So 693 is the word lie in wait. It means ambush, lie in wait, a primitive root, to lurk, lie in an ambush. Kind of takes you back to what Nimrod did as the mighty hunter on the land. We read Job 30. Okay. Just wrapping this up as quick as I can here because I'm running out of time. Yeah, he was a mighty hunter. Micah 4:13. We'll finish off with this. It says, rise and thresh, daughter Zion, for I will give you horns of iron, I will give you hoofs of bronze, and you will break in pieces, many nations. You will devote their ill-gotten gains. That takes you back to what that mighty hunter Nimrod began to do. He began to hunt them and to steal and lie in wait. And it's called ill-gotten gains. And they do so by writing laws that makes them rich and you poor. And they began to steal from the daughter of Zion. They began to hunt her children out of the land. And then they began to take possession of the law and teach you their lying theology that a man is the creator. A male is the creator. When God says, I showed you in my very creation who forms the clay and who gives life to it. Wake up. You can't reason that out? Too hard for you? Then she steps back and she says, all right, fine. They don't believe it. Let's watch. Joseph had to wait, I believe, something like 20 years before his dreams was fulfilled, but he never stopped believing they were true. Oh, the sons thought he was full of crap. Never gonna happen. Took 20 years. And they were fulfilled. He was, 30 years old before he became the next up to Pharaoh in the land of Egypt. But he never once stopped believing. He never doubted what he had dreamed was true. And there's people out there go, well, it's not coming to pass. Well, let's wait. Let's just watch and see what actually comes to pass. God's time frame is not ours. All right? God says, in my appointed time do I bring to pass the things that I say will come to pass. So, there we have it. I got to wrap it up. I'm going to be cut off. Thank you so much, brothers and sisters. Love you very much. Hope you have a grand day full of blessings, manifold blessings from the Lord. Love ya. And thanks for watching.